my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. Can you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on. I can feel it in my bones.
Good evening, it's Mark Hughes. I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance. This is Juxtaposition. Welcome. You caught me again. It is the 14th of May, 2025. Welcome to Juxtaposition. We've got a little bit of a program here. We did some last minute shifts, but I still got some stuff to share with you here on CCTV, Center of Media and Democracy. A CCTV, the Center of Media and Democracy show. This is about issues affecting Black folks and Black folks affecting change. Today on Juxtaposition, protect and defend. Protect and defend. Some of the most consequential and existential policies in Black communities are those on policing. So we'll talk a little bit about policing. Today, the Trump administration recently released this happy executive order that increases the provision of military officers and national security assets who serve alongside state and local enforcement officials. It also dispatches Homeland Security task forces to work in states and municipalities to prevent crime. And reinforces the Trump administration's position that diversity, equity, and inclusion, these DEI initiatives, are civil rights violations, and orders the Attorney General to prosecute state and local officials who engage in DEI practices that, quote, endanger citizens and more. So there's just quite the circus to unpack here today with General Order 14288. That's what we're looking at. Why? Why is this happening? What are the implications here? And what, if anything, can we do to keep our Black communities safe from over-policing and harming our people in our communities? So we got quite the mess here. Let me tell you a little bit about this thing first, but a little background. There are probably somewhere about, where are we? Probably 110 days into the administration, 147 executive orders. And what we've been able to do, one of the things we've been doing is this deep analysis. I'm going to give you some of that in a little bit, not too much. But we've had the opportunity to do the analysis on some of the analysis on the executive orders, and we've created a metadata analysis that we've evaluated, and we're looking at strategies and ways in which we can determine where the highest impact is, and to be able to inform some of our policy and also some of our other mitigation strategies. This executive order, though, I think is the most harmful executive orders in Black communities that we have. We had another one that was, I think it was 14413, which is the one that went after DEI and also the Department of Justice. That was horrible, and it continues to create implications. Now, let me just pause for a minute, because there's a lot of folks that are saying, oh, well, executive orders, the Article 1, it provides that the legislature, it has so and so forth authority, the string, the economic string, the executive branch can't go back on blah, 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 blah. Here's the thing. The thing is that these executive orders are not to be taken lightly. And the point is that when these executive orders are released, they're going to get executed based upon who's appointed, the cabinet members and so forth, unless they're challenged in courts. And this one, to my knowledge, I can't see where it has been challenged yet. And even if it is, there has to be an injunction. So do not underestimate what some of these executive orders are doing. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll set in motion something that has to be undone, as opposed to just not starting something in the first place. So there's quite a bit that's already underway. So this executive order increases the provision of military officers and national security assets who serve alongside the state and local enforcement officials first and foremost. Let me tell you a couple of other things about this thing before we get into this. It's primarily enforced by the Attorney General. It's also, it directs the Attorney General to establish a protocol for the federal government and, get this, pro bono attorneys to support law enforcement officers who unjustly incur legal expenses due to their actions while on duty. And then number 3 is the order instructs the Attorney General and other relevant federal agency heads to, quote, maximize use of federal resources to bolster state and local law enforcement efforts, including, and this is in addition to this, is sending best practices and, quote, aggressively policing all crimes, improving the quality and accessibility of training for law enforcement officers, increasing pay and benefits for law enforcement officers, expanding legal protections for law enforcement officers, lengthening sentences for crimes against law enforcement officers, and encouraging investment in prison security capacity. And then finally, increasing investment in crime data collection and distribution to ensure uniformity across jurisdictions, which is, in my opinion, shorthand for intelligence gathering and sharing. There's also, the order also tasks the Attorney General with modifying and rescinding or concluding any proceedings or agreements that unduly impede the performance of law enforcement function within 60 days of this order. And it directs the Attorney General to prioritize prosecution of state and local officials who, quote unquote, violate federal law by implementing DEI initiatives or prohibiting law enforcement officers from carrying out duties necessary for public safety. So we got ourselves quite a big ball of yarn to unravel here. Finally, the order instructs the Secretary of Defense and the Attorney General to determine how militaristic training, equipment, and personnel can best be used to fight crime. And what that means is that means in these municipalities, in these communities, what we're doing, what's happening here is they are literally flooding the zone because there's this narrative that exists. There's this narrative that crime is on the uprise, that crime is just, things are completely out of control. There's this proliferation of drugs and guns and opioid crises and mental health and homelessness that has converged, and that they have made our communities less safe than they've ever been before. So now what we need to do is we need to send the stormtroopers in and take a look and see what we can do about crime. We'll take a look at this slide that I have here, control room, thank you. And what we were able to do is just to pull some data on crime. And what we're seeing here, and we're going to just keep that up. I'm going to talk you through that a little bit. Using the FBI data, and what I want to do here is we're going to be looking at the FBI as well as the Bureau of Statistics data side by side, so we can provide this startling trend analysis of U.S. violent and property crime rates and how they've changed over time. Now, both the FBI and the Bureau of Justice and Statistics, they show dramatic declines. I said they show dramatic declines in U.S. violent and property crime rates since the early 1990s, when crime spiked across much of the nation. And this goes on to say that using this data, this FBI data, and the violent crime rates, they fell, listen to this, they fell 49% between 1993 and 2022, with large decreases in rates of robbery. That's a 74% decrease in robbery, and also a 39% decrease in aggravated assault, and murder and non-negligent manslaughter went down 34%. Further, we see that the FBI data also shows us that there's a 59% reduction in U.S. property crime rates between 93 and 2022, with big declines in rates of burglary, up to 75% declines in burglary and 54% declines in larceny and theft and 53% declines in motor vehicle theft. So this is all using the Bureau of Justice statistics. The declines in violent and property crime rates, they are even steeper than those captured by those of the FBI. So per the Bureau of Justice and Statistics, the U.S. violent and property crime rates fell 71% between 93 and 2022. Now, while crime rates, they have fallen sharply over a long this period of time, I will note that the decline rates, they haven't always been steady. There have been notable increases in certain kinds of crime in some years, including recently. However, what we see incredibly steep declines in crime over this period. In 2020, for example, the U.S. murder rate saw its largest single increase on record, and then by 2022, it remained considerably higher than before the coronavirus pandemic. Preliminary data for 2023, however, suggests that the murder rate fell substantially over that year. So just to give you an idea of what it is that we're tracking. And I think it's incredibly important to have these conversations at a time where we're being sold this bill that somehow or another things are just really, really unsafe. The other things that are happening, what we know is that there are a myriad of executive orders that are deconstructing, that literally have deconstructed civil rights. Some of that we went into over our last session when we were together back in April. We talked a little bit about it. And what we know and what we understand, and this is not just my analysis, this is what a lot of the folks from ACLU, also some of the folks from some of the other the folks over at the Legal Defense Fund that's the NAACP, Legal Defense Fund. They've also put out some information on it too. I think I may have some of that for you later. But what we're getting is that civil rights, the protections of our citizens here in the United States have declined as a result of the literally dozens and dozens of executive orders and actions that have occurred over these last 100 or so days, to the point where at a velocity and at a trajectory, I would say, where we are at a point now where we're right at the time of about 1890, where Plessy versus Ferguson was being contemplated by the United States Supreme Court, and we were preparing to enter our Jim Crow, lynching, and also our convict leasing era as a nation. That's where our civil rights are today. Now, if that wasn't enough, I've also, this next slide is really reflective of what's going on with the reductions in the federal workforce. And a lot of folks say, well, there is no direct correlation. What does that have to do with anything? Well, it has everything to do with it, because again, when you start to look at these disproportionate racial representations in the federal workforce as of 2024, we come to understand that 18%, black folks are 18% of the federal workforce. We're only 13% of the population. So that's an overrepresentation by 5%, and that's significant. That's very significant. Also, most concentrated in administrative, clerical, and support roles, but underrepresented in senior executive roles. We call it senior executive service, understanding that white folks in the federal workforce, they represent about 61% of the federal workforce, where they only represent about 58% of the population. Notable is the light overrepresentation, especially in executive and policy making decisions. But the point here, thank you for that. The point is that there is a reason why this administration is going after the federal workforce. Guess what I'm holding here? This is, so as we're taking a look at this over policing, and as we're taking a look at this what is just this crushing blow that this administration has made on policing across the nation. Now, keep in mind, the bell has already rang. And what do I mean by that is that you can bet everything that you have that the message is clear and it is resounding. You cannot unring this bell in terms of what this administration is communicating to law enforcement and how law enforcement has received this message. Just to be clear, there is a quote, indemnification offered to law enforcement that essentially is telling them that you will be protected. You will be protected legally if you enter into any of the court systems. We have a legal defense for you because we've got a legion of attorneys that have already acquiesced, and they've already committed hundreds of millions of dollars to the administration for legal purposes. So that's out there. So while all of this is going on, the question here in this report is does the race of the driver still influence officer decisions in Vermont on traffic policing? So yeah, you guessed it. There's another report out from Stephanie Seguino, Professor Emerita, Department of Economics, and also here Nancy Brooks, the visiting associate professor, and of course Pat Attilio, the data. Shout out Pat. He's also a data person for the Alliance. And what we're after here is this is a report on race traffic stop data. Why is this relevant? Well, what we know is first of all, there's no reason to believe that we are here in one of, if not the safest state in the United States, and what is likely one of, if not the safest city of its size in the United States. But nonetheless, what we have is we still have disproportionate rates in which folks are being stopped, and we also have over-policing coming at us at the same time. This is a recipe for disaster. What we have here is we have a recipe for disaster. And I didn't come just to give you bad news, but I did come to share the narrative. We've got this narrative that's coming at us where we need a counter narrative. And the counter narrative is the truth is that, the answer to this fallout is look, folks, the central issue that we're dealing with here is systemic racism. The root causes of this administration policies is anything that this administration can do against exposing and addressing systemic racism, which is rooted in the legacy of slavery. Anything that they can do to come against that, that's what they're doing. So the current rollbacks and this clapback, if you will, or this backlash it's as old as the nation is, and it's not a new thing that we're experiencing. And the only challenge that we have right now is we haven't caught up with the flood of narrative and the flood of actions that this administration has thrown at us right now. And there never was a counter narrative to what this administration was positing in terms of the woke policy agenda that has, quote unquote, ruined the nation, and that somehow or another how our children have learned to hate themselves, and we've turned against our founding fathers, and we're not to talk about DEI because it's destructive, and Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization, and the list goes on. CRT, blah, 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 blah. And the thing is the challenge is that the who's drinking the Kool-Aid is the question. It's not just the far right that's drinking the question, because really the election was decided in the center, and there's just, what we're dealing with is moderates and progressives that have began to believe some of this same rhetoric. And I think that part of it has to do with a lack of a narrative. So again, back to the slide, justice and stability and safety for all, this is really what we want to be talking about. So one of the things as we are moving towards a close is I think one of the things is we're organizing, and what we're doing is talking about strategies on what we do right now during this difficult time. is that we want to cultivate this conversation about true justice, stability, and safety for all Americans. It's really only achievable by acknowledging and addressing systemic racism and the legacy of slavery. And also, oh, by the way, civil rights protections are fundamental to democratic integrity and societal well-being. They're not special treatment. So there's a lot of different ways that thank you for that slide. There's a lot of different ways that we're going to want to go about addressing some of these challenges. There are social and economic costs associated with what's going on right now. You see, exclusionary policies, they don't just harm Black communities. They are harming the entire nation by limiting economic potential, increasing social unrest, and also reducing public trust in democratic institutions. The national division that we're experiencing right now and the instability is what we really need to be paying attention to. The refusal to address the legacy of slavery perpetuates this national division, and it actually undermines our social cohesion. Without reckoning with systemic racism, the United States will never achieve genuine unity and justice or substantial peace. This is what we're wrestling with. This is the narrative that we're kicking around, and this is the conversations that we need to be having. So tomorrow we will have some organizing meeting over at the Richard Kim Center. You're invited to join. We may have a remote option. I'm not sure about that. Also, I want you to catch up with us on our Truth and Justice series. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. I did want to talk about a little bit, back to this slide, is the moral and democratic imperative. Advancing civil rights and acknowledging the truth of systemic racism, we're going to have to get this done. And if we want this democracy to work, we got to get this done. We got to get this done in a way to where every single citizen, that everybody's valued, that everybody's protected. This whole flood the zone with this policing thing is a no-go. It's a non-starter. It is failed policy, and it's going to what it's going to do is it's going to create another mess. An inclusive society benefits everyone by fostering innovation, ensuring public safety, and creating fair and a just future. It doesn't make sense to amplify this whole idea of policing when we know that the history of policing in Black and underserved communities is horrible and quite often incendiary. So we need a justice movement. We need a fusion movement. And that's what we're working on today. Our movement is focusing around civil rights, human protection, human rights, nonviolence, and a beloved community. We need a multiracial, intergenerational, interfaith, multi-abled, and politically independent movement to get this work done, to get us back on stable footing. See, we are not, and we should not ever be waiting on our saviors. We're building power, and we're moving forward. I'll tell you a little bit about this Truth and Justice series. This is the last thing I'll give you before we take off. We got to get out of here. This is a cornerstone, this Truth and Justice. They're the cornerstone of personal character, family relationships, the foundation of our community and society. They're essential to constructing values, belief systems, and principles that guide ethical decision-making and human flourishing. So the Truth and Justice series, it's a year-long journey that explores this profoundly important, the importance rather of truth in confronting our shared history, including the enduring legacy of slavery and systemic injustice. And the urgency of creating justice where it has been absent. This thing is drawn on the timeless vision of a world where the oppressed are freed, the brokenhearted find comfort, those silenced are heard. This series invites participants from all faiths and traditions to join in this urgent conversation about the central role of truth and justice that they must play in shaping our present as well as our future. What's going on here, what we're experiencing here, has everything to do with a lie. It has everything to do with premising these policies, premising decisions that are being made right now on things that are not even true. And I think, many of us, even myself, on some levels, there have been times where we've drank the Kool-Aid. I think it's time for us to come back to the center, take a look at what we're really doing here as a nation. We know that the turn of the century brought us into a proliferation of white Christian nationalism, leading to the birtherism and also the Tea Party, as well as the new and unprecedented expansion of white supremacy and hate groups. That's as classified by the Southern Poverty Law Center. Leading up until 2020, Congress established the 400-year African American History Commission, and also Nicole Hannah-Jones published this groundbreaking and Pulitzer Prize-winning 1619 project that was published in the New York Times. Of course, you remember coronavirus, which shuttered the nation at that point, laying bare all of the realities of the separate and unequal nation and exposing the racial inequities across all health determinants. While this was happening, the murder of George Floyd would send into motion the largest and the most prolific racial justice reckoning ever known on this planet. Statues fell, DEI programming in all sectors exploded. The world experienced a racial awakening like never before. Military-grade weapons turned on Black Lives Matter protesters in Lafayette Park in Washington, D.C., and later an insurrection only parallel to 1814 burned the Capitol, burned the Capitol by the British, would be carried out by what was largely a white mob, and with impunity. And we know what happened after that and what brought us to a point to where we are today. What we know today is that there's a backlash that's happening and we're in the middle of it. Hello, welcome to America. This is not the end, this is the beginning. There are those who've stood fast and those who have not wavered. There are those who've moved on. This is the same fight that we started fighting as a nation at the inception of this nation. The pendulum is swinging. We are not on a trajectory. We're not going from bad to better. This is not an inflection point of the nation where the first time in history where things have gotten worse. We've never aspired to be what it is that we said, as Langston Hughes said we would be as a nation. This nation has never really fully achieved a true democracy where everyone was treated equal. This nation has never arrived at the aspirational point where all men are created, where we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. We've never arrived at that. And this is a republic if we can keep it. So we'll continue to fight the fight. I ask that you join the fight. The movement is on. We'll continue to do the work. As I said, we'll meet at the Richard Kim Center tomorrow evening, and we'll continue to do the work. That work will continue, and we'll go forward. So yes, let's move forward. The Truth and Justice series is on. That's Thursday of next week. That's in South Burlington. For those who can come, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining Juxtaposition. This is a show about issues affecting black folks affecting change. Glad you could come out. Have a great evening. God bless you all.